discussion about how to use this time, and based on some of the discussion with the managers, we sort of ended up coming back to, or I came back to, I guess, stationing and targeting. And now that all of you are well into training, I guess just expanding how we think about and use those tools seemed like a good topic. So what I thought I would do today is show you a few videos that pertain to targeting and the different ways to use targets, and then tomorrow maybe we'll focus, or not tomorrow, Thursday, focus more on stationing and kind of what a station means and how you use it and when to use it. And the same with the targets and all the different target types. So that's my plan. I've got a few videos to show you that are on my computer, and then thanks to Adam, yay, we got on the internet, so we can use some of the YouTube videos that really mainly about zebra training, just to continue talking about targeting. So yay. All right. And really, I'm just going to show some videos and kind of talk a little, and then the point of this isn't a lecture, this isn't another Margaret training blah 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 kind of lecture, so I really want to open it up to discussion, and if some of the videos aren't even pertinent, I might not show them, but I just kind of loaded everything up, and if we want to look at them, we can. So just to start, since some of you are working in groups, I thought this was a bit interesting. So she's the person who's been working with the penguins, and this is during a workshop, kind of introducing the target to a group of penguins. You can see there's several trainers, a little bit of chaos with the penguins all running around and trying to get some food. One of the things that I want you to do as you're looking at these videos is think, if I was the consultant or the manager, how would I suggest that they improve this situation? So I want your feedback as you watch these videos. It's not, there's lots of ways to do anything, and this isn't about what's right and what's wrong. It's about the different options that might be available to either make it more efficient or a little bit easier. And we're not necessarily focusing on any single penguin. And think about some of the basic things that we talk about with how you manage your tools, and your tools being your targets, your food, anything else in the area. Okay, got a comment.
I just want to make sure, it looks like they actually closed off part of the penguin flock, so part of them are locked out, yes?
The exhibit is out here, I think, yeah. Yeah, there's lots and lots of penguins here. So just a few of them have come in for training.
Got another rockhopper just outside.
Do you know if it's the same group of penguins that Connie was in for training this time?
No, they're all involved in training. So is anyone seeing anything that you like or would change?
Something I would change is move away from just one single bucket of food for both trainers, so that they could be more portable and spread themselves out and have less dense.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a little chaotic around the food resource.
They never take their targets away. They're constantly waving them and not paying attention, and there's some trying to reach for it, but they're just far enough away.
Yeah.
So they're trying.
I think with both of those comments, it would help because it's kind of confusing if some of them are trying to work, but the person is working with a different one. Then the bridging, it can be confusing as to who is getting what bridge, so it's going to have a hard time making that strong. But I think moving them farther away, you might have a penguin that's actually tuned in, and that would work better.
Yeah. We'll just kind of go around the room, yeah.
Well, it seems like there's enough people for, enough room for 3 people and a cameraman. So, Then there could be a third person, like each person has 3 penguins assigned to them. That way it's a little bit easier to keep track of the progress of each, you know, the same 3 penguins
Yeah.
for each person.
Well,
Something like that, or have like some of them, you know, even in that room gated off and being kept busy with enrichment while a smaller amount is being trained.
Excellent.
It seems like there's quite a few penguins in there. I don't know if they're like trying to do like a training in more of like a group setting, but yeah, they're kind of chaotic in who they're focusing on. So like one penguin might be like just wandering around and not even get anything, but like kind of what Jessica said, they're hearing that bridge, and so it could be very confusing as to like what they're being reinforced for, or they're hearing that bridge and then not getting the reward. So like one penguin might not even get any fish or be, you know, used with the target pool.
Rearranging the space so you actually have kind of like pockets for the different individuals to go into to create a little bit of delay instead of freely drifting about. Having kind of more physical separation between individuals is helpful.
Also, it looked like with the trainer on the right, she'd be trying to target one of them and another one would interrupt, and then she'd just go and target that one and reinforce it. So I think she was really reinforcing the ones that were interrupting others.
Yeah.
I think, like Miro said, assigning, you know, multiple penguins to a trainer, but I think that would be in a series of approximations. So once you have, like, start with 1 penguin per trainer, and then once that penguin knows, like, this is, and I would start with a station rather than a target, because that would allow them to stay, like, come to this spot and stay with me, or at least learn your station. And then once you have a set of animals that know that, then you can add in new novel animals, and you can potentially grow your group with a few trainers, but I think you need to do it a little bit at a time. So, including everything else everyone said.
Yeah.
Using a using good locations
No,
and
these
all that.
are great ideas, and you see how we're already coming up with different ways to kind of address this same problem. You could assign stations, maybe it was a mat on the floor, you could start with multiple animals, you could start with 1 animal, you could use some physical barriers to divide the area up a little bit more. So lots of different ways, yeah.
In addition to everyone's comments, my other big question is, what is the overall goal of the session? Because that would determine a lot of which of these things and other things that I would use.
Yeah. And this was during one of our workshops like we do here at Oakland Zoo. This was at Moody Gardens, and so it was workshop participants just sort of going out, having fun with penguins. They were trying to do a little targeting, so that was really the goal, but obviously it's really informal and loose, and you can see by how loosely it's structured that that's going to make learning pretty difficult for the penguins. Did anyone see anything with, other than the food being in the bucket, anything about the food?
Pretty large.
They seem like awfully large pieces. And I'm also wondering how reinforcing they are, because there seem to be several pieces of uneven fish in the records. Smaller sizes.
They do prefer the bigger, I'm not sure about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but that could change the way it's presented.
With Leslie's point of knowing what the point of this training is, I've seen a lot of penguin trainers, and just feeding them is hard because they all flock. So if it was just to get everyone to take fish calmly and separate out a little bit, the food size seems normal for penguins.
Yeah.
But it depends on what the point is. If the point was to actually train, then smaller pieces, but if it's just to feed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I also noticed the trainer on the right, would pull the fish out, hold it in her hand, and then
Yeah.
ask for a target.
That's actually the one I was kind of really looking for, because I know, did y'all hear what she said? That the trainer on the right would pull the fish out and have it in her hand while she's trying to do the targeting, and then other penguins are coming up. And, you know, for those of you that have worked with me probably at least once, maybe more than once, you've heard me say, try to avoid keeping your hands in your pouch if you have a pouch of food, because the animals get really distracted by that. Then they end up watching your hand, and when it's going to move a little bit rather than paying attention to the training session. So I think absolutely that food in the hand was a pretty big distraction when those birds are already really distracted. So, awesome. Okay. Let's just take a look at this. And just kind of tell me what you think of target use.
Which target is the bear supposed to be focusing on? You got two in view.
So a little target confusion there. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of weightiness on it too, like not really defining where exactly you want the animal to target. You're just kind of waving it around and seeing what you want it to do.
Yeah, I feel a little uncomfortable and nervous watching this.
Feels like almost reinforcing for the pulling the paw away. It's not waiting until there's at least a moment of pause. It's reinforcing pulling
Yeah,
away
she's
from
kind of
the
so
paw.
quick to move in and poke with the foot target that the bear's pulling away. Let's see.
I didn't like how she was feeding with the hand she had targeted. So like the bear's targeting it, but then she's kind of pushing it in his face when she feeds him, and it's not hitting the right spot because she needs to.
Yeah, really the head target, which is the one with the tennis ball, the nose target, she's not even using it, and she's just sort of holding it and waving it around and having it in her, oh, the little one she's got in her food hand, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's right. I didn't like
yeah.
how she was feeding with the same hand that she had, that she
Yeah.
was touching the bear with.
Yeah.
Well, it seems as she's going so fast, it's pretty clear that she has a clear outline of what she wants to do, but isn't taking any information from her animal. It's just her here, 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 here,
Yeah.
here. You know, so it's slowing down a little bit.
It almost reminds me of like watching an animal to get desensitized to stuff. And I don't know if that is what's happening here, and she's, this is his first time getting this, or one of his first times getting
It
this.
is one of the first times getting
But,
touched, yeah.
maybe, maybe the fact that it's, new in the training program is why it looks so weird.
I mean, that's a nice way to say it, but I think it's more technique too. Yes.
I think what I'm assuming she's attempting to do with the two targets is that the face target, she would like the bear to hold the focus of the face target, and that then she can use the touching target. But I think she needs to back up because he's not really focusing on the face target, and she's also, like Sarah said, she's reduced her number of hands for feeding and targeting by holding this face target, when if it were a hanging station, she could build that behavior until it was strong, and then she could start doing the touching completely separate, and that would go much slower than she is going right now, too. And she'd have an extra hand.
I mean, she can certainly use, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because that is one of the things that I want to talk about is kind of how we use hanging targets. I like the nose target on the stick. It allows you, if you want to work on this paw, you can take his nose this way a little bit, which might lean him this way and allow him to start to lift his paw, bring his nose this way, which is going to let him make it easier for him to move this paw. So you can use the nose target on a stick to help get the animal in a position that you want, whereas if you just clip it on, you may have to move their whole body and bring it back. It's harder to tweak finer movements, but to me, she's not even using the nose target. She's just got it in her hand, and because she hasn't thought to put it down yet. So it would be a very useful tool. Keep his nose up here, and maybe a little more slowly reach in with the foot target rather than poke, and he pulls away and bridges.
Perhaps if you do want to use two targets, maybe another person would be in addition, either to have one of the targets or be just the feeding person or something like that, just to separate duties out and not have it all be on one person.
Yeah. So again, lots of different ways to achieve this, and I think if we just sort of step back and take a look, and this is why videoing ourselves is so helpful, because you kind of get in the moment. I just want to get one good touch with that foot target, but that one good touch may be taking you down like a not so great path. So slowing down, making sure the animal's comfortable with the tools that you're using. I think this bear is not comfortable with the foot target, and the way she's using it is a little, not aggressive, but she's moving pretty quickly with it and kind of poking the bear. So. Same girl, different bear. feel free to start commenting anytime.
It looks like the nose target isn't that strong yet to introduce that plus the paw. He still wants to move.
Because she's getting better using her.
She's actually
variance, but I agree, she should wait for better duration before introducing
Yeah.
the next.
Or she's leaving it up there the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So she's not reinforcing the bear for staying on it the whole time. She's not requiring that the bear stay on it the whole time. So that's one of those times that you come at them, you know, presenting the target is a stimulus. So you present it, you can either ask for target, or if he's already up, you can take his nose over a little and ask for foot at the same time. So you could present both your targets together. Because he knows to follow the nose target. So if you just want to go ahead and take him this way and say foot, you don't have to target, bridge, reinforce, foot, bridge, reinforce. You can do them together at the same time. If the nose target is a really strong behavior that you use it that way. And definitely, I think taking that nose target down and representing it each time would be important. And there's two people. There's a trainer here, and then the person who's training for blood draw.
Oh, there.
What's that thing in her hand, that little sticky thing?
A target stick.
Okay. Oh, I see.
There it is.
Can you see that he's trying to touch the paw with that? That's what the little, you can see his hand just kind of moving. So he's trying to cue the paw to move this way a little bit. He's a stupid bear.
Felt like there was a lot of bridging for not what they wanted, that he was halfway into the thing, they did a whole like touch and everything when he wasn't even all the way through, so they didn't care about the first step in the process of all the way in, and polar bears he definitely was lifted and scratched the hand because he wasn't all the way in.
Again, it seemed like the duration for leaving the paw in there all the way should be built before starting to touch, because it looks like a couple times he pulled back when they touched the paw.
It seemed like there were a couple of really confusing cues for the bear too. Like there was the target, and then they would say his name, and then they would reinforce what they said his name, or there was just a lot of confusion, it seemed like, for what they were cueing for the animal.
I was gonna say the same thing,
What they were saying.
the cue is not clear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chatter, a lot of white noise, where, you know, I feel, especially if they're, and I do agree with Sam too, that if they're training two things at the same time, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's two behaviors and too many words.
Yeah, so kind of getting back to that, clear and concise with our cues, and regarding the putting the paw in as a criteria prior to being able to touch the paw. I mean, I think that's a decision you can make as a trainer. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you must hold your paw in for 45 seconds before we even start touching, if you can do it safely. So you may want to start a little descent, but knowing that the end point is going to require the paw being all the way in the paw box and held still, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you couldn't add in some desensitization, but I think y'all are absolutely right. It gets a little bit muddled there, and there's a lot of bridging, and both people are bridging, and maybe they haven't clearly defined who's bridging for what. So she's bridging for the paw coming forward, repositioning the paw, but he's over there tapping it with the target kind of the whole time, even if she's not saying nuka paw. So, you know, if they were to say paw, like the way I would do it is, if I'm the trainer, I would say paw, and then the second person would touch it with the target to say, yeah, move your paw this way, rather than kind of the whole time just touching it. Because if you're just touching him with the target the whole time and he's not moving, and you're reinforcing, you're teaching him to not move while we touch you with the target. Was there another?
I was just gonna say that it may just be the vantage point, but to me the target looked very small, so I don't know if he may have had a hard time seeing where they were asking him to go.
Yeah, and because he's looking down the mesh, he really can't see very well anyways. So it is important that you touch him, like move your paw this way, move your paw this way, so that he learns which direction to move that paw. So that's why being so clear about the touching is really important, because I don't think he can, you know, he's like, actually he's lying down and putting his paw through. I have to stop and think about that. Yeah, so he's lying down, so he really can't necessarily see. So again, being very clear and precise with how you use your target is super important.
That's scary.
A lot of baiting going on at that point.
Yeah. So what's the feeding doing there? Yeah, distracting. So she's working up towards an injection, and this might be one of those cases where, I mean, it looks scary, the openings, fairly good size on that mesh. And it looks, I mean, even, you know, it might be the nicest bear in the world, but of course there still could be some safety concerns there. But with regard to what the bear is learning and training technique, at this point to me, she's really just using what I would call distraction. Here, come eat this food while I mess with your shoulder. And at some point, maybe the bear is going to go, hey, it's not worth it for me to be distracted over here anymore. And there hasn't really been that process of desensitization where you do something, bridge and reinforce, get paid for it. So I think that's, although, oh yeah, it looks nice, we can feed the bear and touch his shoulder, at some point that may be one of those distraction techniques that breaks down. And think big group of baboons here. You can see there's a lot of movement in the background. He's a pretty blue.
She never rewarded his butt.
What? She never.
Never rewarded his butt.
Well, you know, he's
You
a
got your
boy.
buddy, put it down right in front of his butt, not right in his face. That's why about 2 seconds to see it.
And what does that
He's in
do?
front of his butt.
What does that do? If you're working with a big group of animals.
Keeps them
Someone's
busy.
gonna steal it.
He's the big guy. Ain't nobody stealing it. Buys you a little extra time. Now he's got to sit down. He knows his reinforcement's going to be there. So now he's got to, I just made that up right here. I don't know exactly what I planned. But I think it's the same thing as like when I think I showed you the video of the little PVC like elbows that were used for stations. And the PVC elbows allow you to drop the food bit down in them, and then the animal has to kind of dig it out, so it takes them a little bit more time to get their reinforcement, which when you're working with a big group of animals, if you can occupy that dominant animal, then that allows you a little bit more time to work with the subordinates. So again, kind of thinking of this working with big group mentality. I just came from that training session, which is a big group and some crazy dynamics going on. Yeah.
That seems kind of risky, thinking back to the enrichment workshops and respecting the hierarchy that you have within different groups. So I guess it depends on the animal, because he could have easily been mad that the subordinate animal got a food piece right next to him, even though he hadn't received his yet.
But then what would you do to manage that?
But I'm just saying, like, it can be a risky move.
It can be, but you have a technique, right? Cooperative feeding.
increases.
So when you're working with a big group of animals, it's a really different mindset. For those of you that are accustomed to working one-on-one, when you work with a big group of animals, it really is such a different mindset that I think you get in, and how you adjust your expectations and set priorities. And you've got to think about the dominance. Is the dominance hierarchy? Can the most dominant animal tolerate me giving the subordinate something? Do you need to do a little cooperative feeding prior to even doing more training, or can you just kind of work in the cooperative feeding as you go about your session? Acknowledge that some of them may need to get up and run around. I mean, again, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 other animals sort of all around here, and there were actually a couple more that are out of the view over here. So there's a bit of like bouncing around, everybody's moving around, but the big guy has to stay relatively still and get reinforced. And then we can go work with somebody over here, come back and give him a little treat. And then later in another clip, she actually walks over to another, you can see there's a little cage wall here, goes this way. She can go around and have access to some other animals over there with a little bit of that barrier. They can come through it. They're not physically separated. But just kind of a quick look at group work and how different that can be. All right, now, thanks, Alicia. Are you here? For sharing so many beautiful, thanks, Alicia, videos. And what I just went through and sort of made some notes on certain points that are pertinent to what we're talking about today. So, and these go all the way back to 2013. Oh my God! That wasn't supposed to happen. I should have started.
I'm sure you guys can charade in the training session.
Who wants to be the zebra?
I'll be lucky. I can vote.
Reach back to 2013. Use your technique.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Margaret. I love you boys.
Are you gonna kick in the face?
Yeah.
Should have started.
Sorry.
She got money just once. She thinks big because I should have done it. They're like very little services.
We told Ron to
Oh, good. Very sweet. So when you get home, you go.
boy on the girl need a job.
I told Louie to start cleaning his own house since we had that.
You will.
You can start.
Pretty big habit.
You don't wanna go back?
Probably not.
You're holding the clock.
I guess that's.
I think it's right
Yeah. To 2013.
One day I wrote out my phone and I just
Oh, sorry.
I was like washing my bed sheets.
I can get my legs on that.
I changed my sheets to dirty dryer and
I'm like, wow, so that was on my spirit. I'm not bad. Alright, well, it seems we're having technical difficulties. I was gonna just use some of the videos from YouTube of zebra training, and then for Thursday, use some Ashia training. So I think what we'll try to do is either get it to work for Thursday or download them and just put them on a computer. Yeah, I mean, I can just stand up here and talk about what's on the videos, but that's really boring. And I don't really want to do that.
Everybody can pull their phone out.
Okay,
I'm
go.
conserving data.
You're conservative.
I am, I get in trouble if I use too much.
My mom will.
She does, she calls me Nielsen and tells me over.
Faith, you wanna just hook up to the hard line? And the HDMI here?
No, it's not HDMI, it's the Ethernet. Do we have a?
Yeah, there's a, you could just take
Do
it
it.
from,
That's how we watch the Olympics.
I'm not kidding.
Let's try it. So it's, there's one over there. No, Margaret, we're sticking with
just have to move the laptop over here.
no, don't have it. We're on birthday.
Yeah. So, but I guess, just, maybe you can think about it based on some of the stuff that we've seen. Really kind of what I want us to think about is I mean, we know a target's a point of reference, but, we've had mention of hanging targets, we've seen stick targets. There's lots and lots of different types of targets that we use, and I think we really want to, when we're working through like our tier 1 behaviors and it says station train. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? How are we using that? Are we just doing it because it's on tier 1 and Colleen's gonna get mad if we don't? So we have to check it off. But what purpose does it serve? So I think we really want to examine why we're doing what we're doing and make sure that it does something other than keep us out of trouble. Because really it should help with our daily husbandry and management and ultimately help the animals. So I think that's really like as I wander around the zoo and talk with each of you and here we're working through our tier 1 behaviors and we're working on stationing, and again I'm gonna pick on the baboons because we just not pick on them but use them as a really great example. I just came from a session there, so there's like 300 baboons, I'm not sure.
It's close.
It's close, yeah. And almost that many trainers, but not quite. So, and the baboons line up, for those of you that haven't seen it, like probably half of you are involved in baboon training, but for those of you that haven't seen it, the baboons all line up along a fence and they all have their sort of place where they go. And the places where they go are based on their comfort level. So the least dominant ones are furthest away from the most dominant, and they've kind of, in a way, picked where they want to sit, and then the staff's done a great job of modifying that, making some little visual barriers so that everybody feels comfortable sitting in their location. And again, sort of keeping in mind the spastic baboon may not sit perfectly still. I mean, it's easy for the big guy because he's the big guy and he's large and in charge and he knows that. So it's pretty easy for him to sit still. But some of the others, they have to bounce around and check and see what's going on, and heaven forbid a female's in a full swelling, that changes everything. So there's lots of things that are changing within this group of animals. And the training should accommodate the animal's needs as well as husbandry and care needs. And they all go to their place, they all go and sit down for the most part and stay. But one of the behaviors is working on a hanging station. And so Ashley and I were kind of having this discussion, and then during the training session today, Michelle, and I forgot now who else was sitting with you. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry about that. So, we were kind of talking about this one individual, and he keeps reaching over and trying to grab the hanging target. And sort of like you saw with the bear and the nose target, where it's ever present, that's how the hanging station target is. It's ever present. So he goes over and he's like, hey, I'm doing it. And he's been reinforced for touching this. So he keeps trying to go over and touch it and maybe earn something for it. So he's being a good boy, he's trying to do the right thing, but nobody's asking him to do it. But it's ever present there hanging. I see it, I'm supposed to go touch it. So that might be a little confusing for him. And then the conversation that we were having was, well, what's the real purpose of this hanging target? He already sits. His station is a location. It doesn't have to be an object. And because of the way the training is laid out, where one end of the fence to the other end of the fence is occupado by some baboon or baboons, it's not like you're gonna move that station target and tell him to go station. At least not in that setting. So, again, kind of what's the purpose of it? One of the purposes that we talked about might be to keep his busy little monkey hands occupied, holding onto the target, so that you could use a foot target or a body target or something like that, and he's less likely to grab it. But then really you're training an incompatible behavior. The undesirable behavior is grabbing the foot target. The incompatible behavior is you get reinforced for holding on to this target while I reach in for your foot. So it's not necessarily a station in the sense of go sit by it. It's more of an incompatible behavior, hold on to this while I target other parts of your body. So that's what I mean by how we use these tools and really thinking about them. And just because it's on the tier 1 list and it says we must station train, what does that mean? What are we doing with it? So that's kind of where I want to go with the discussion for Thursday and get your thoughts and ideas and, you know, just really start to think outside of a target as a target as a target, and a station always means this. So how we use these tools to achieve different objectives. So, yeah.
I've never seen baboon training. Could you say that where the little rock or wherever this animal sits, is that his station? Is that kind of how you use it?
Yeah, I think he's got a location station. The group basically knows we go to this spot and good things happen. So that's their station. If you say, Maya, come here, she's going to come here to that station or that location.
And you're welcome to train baboons.
Kind of an example of that, so zebra training before Amber and Leslie, when I first joined zebra training, the zebras were all trained in the same place every time, and that was probably more of a habit than a purpose. And what they realized was they weren't actually following the keepers, they were just going to their spots.
That location.
And you didn't have to put something up because they would stay there because they knew that was their spot. You know, I mean, and it was more of a keeper habit of, here's your station, and they're like, well, that's nice, I already know this is where I always train.
Yeah.
So I think that was just another example of a different species in group training where they didn't need a physical station, they knew because of space and location.
Yeah. And probably some social dynamics when it was a bigger group then.
Yeah, and that's why it was all spread out.
Next to
And
whom,
with
yeah.
4, it was like, well, I need this much space, so it was almost this equal distance between all of them across the whole exhibit. So you were really limited, and that's where they stayed.
Yeah, that's a great example. And, you know, there can be some limitations when you lock into a location in that, okay, now I need you to move over here, maybe going towards where the scale is or whatever it might be. And I could see where that would possibly emerge as more of a problem in like the zebra situation. The baboon situation, because it's so many animals and it's like wall-to-wall, pink butts and fur kind of thing, there's not much room for moving animals to different locations. But maybe if you were working inside with the baboons and a smaller group, then it might be more important to have them, like I can clip a bunch of targets up and everybody go to a target. So that you don't get locked into, I mindlessly go to this location.
Well, we realized that the stations didn't actually work because then we tried to move them, like with their station they know so well, and they were like, no, I'm already there.
Yeah.
Messing up my station.
And it is funny how certain behaviors can get really tied to a location or physical aspect of the enclosure. So yeah, great example.
One of the things about stationing in relationship to the baboon sessions too, we are talking about someday maybe being able to implement, we're not ready yet, but since we don't have a lot of latitude to move animals around because it is wall-to-wall pink butts and fur, is that how you described it? We talked about, you know, maybe a desensitization might be to incorporate another trainer coming up and then stepping, like if you've got a group of 3 baboons at one station, bring in another trainer so that you can take a baboon off to the side just slightly a little bit. So we're hoping there will be some flexibility at some point once these, you know, stations become really reinforcing, and I think we're somewhere on that plane right now where the stations are becoming increasingly reinforcing to the different groups,
but there's still that constantly changing social dynamic and environmental things and all of that stuff that we're still working through now too.
And I think, you know, given, like, even if you, not to be, now I'm gonna sound like a negative Nelly, and I don't really need to sound that way, I'm just sort of throwing extra things in to think about. Is, you know, say you had that in mind, and I trained this station, this physical object as a station, and you think you're just gonna be able to take an animal like a baboon away because they're trained on the station. But again, the social dynamics are gonna be have such a tremendous impact on where the animals wanna move, that it would be, I think, even beyond station training and training separation, or, you know, maybe if you're moving one animal towards another animal, some cooperative feeding, so that animal they're moving towards is reinforced as this one moves. I mean, it's so complicated, I guess, and there's so many things to think about. It's far beyond just stationing, I guess. And the baboons just provide, I suggest everybody go have a look at the training, because it's pretty amazing. I mean, it is quite complicated. There's a lot going on, and, you know, talk to any of the staff who have been with them for a couple of years and hear about all the changes. And I mean, it used to be mayhem, and they've done such a lovely, lovely job of getting that group of animals to settle down and line up and really work beautifully together. And some of it has to do with the young males kind of maturing a little bit. I mean, they cause a lot of problems, and maybe they're settling. But hopefully they're a really good technique that's been helping with that too. But it's pretty cool. Not that the rest of your training isn't as well. I just came from that because, you know, I feel like a jerk. You're all doing a great job. That seems sincere, didn't it?
One other point about group training, it's something we did with the gators, is just remembering that the animals don't necessarily know English, so sometimes with group training sessions, but
Are you sure?
well, maybe shouldn't, but
Gators speak
but
French.
what we did with gators is we station trained the gators to their names. So instead of saying station, they knew their names. So it's a different word for each gator. So when you called for one gator, I picked this up in Florida, and they're like, oh no, we teach all the gators their names. Like, no, you did a really cool station training, and you just used different words for each station. So when they wanted one gator, they called Bob. And, oh, I know what that means, like mutt. But when you say Larry, well, Bob doesn't know what that means, so he ignores it, and Larry came up. You know, and so it's the same kind of thing. What?
Were they named Bob?
No, they weren't.
Really wanted them to be Bob.
I think they're great though for Southern gators, yeah. But you know, when you break it down, you realize, oh, they train these gators to station up to their names, and so they're using different words, and so that's something if you're having problems with group training sessions to always think about is if your animals are getting confused by hearing too many commands or something, you can always switch up the words. Just as a thought. But when you break it down, that's all they were doing. They're like, oh, we trained them to their names. So it's like, you're station training, which is cool, very cool. And using their names instead of the word station.
It's the recall.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also important because sometimes you get into the habit of saying their name and asking for the cue. And so sometimes you might think you're saying Twiga target, but you're saying Twiga target, and that's now one
That's
word.
your, not
And
your
that's
cue
the
is now.
cue. It's not. So if you are working with an animal that you really want their name to be one thing, and you want a target to be another thing, making sure you don't blend those into some ambiguous, but in this situation, it's this big long one.
Yeah. And you know, I noticed that when I did bat training in passes, I made that pretty much the cue for that bat was, you know, it was Casanova station, Casanova target, and I said the name and the word, so his cue actually became his name and target. Go for commissary.
I think names are really valuable too, especially in animals that are highly auditory. Working with 6 macaws in one shared space, that is definitely very helpful. Using the names frequently before asking for things or before giving attention specifically.
Yeah, we're here.
Stationing most of them, trying the last stragglers to come down and like specifically train them to their name is very helpful in group situations.
And it's like, name recognition is always kind of an interesting topic to me as well, because some people will set out to train it specifically, and I think, yeah, sometimes you may need to do that, but a lot of times it just naturally kind of happens, and I think a lot of that depends on how you use it. If you're really careful and say, Twiga target versus tree target in your example. You know, so you can kind of, I don't know, I think sometimes with some animals it just happens. You don't have to set out to do it, but then being really careful, like you said, so it doesn't just become some weird word. Yeah.
But more or less is knowing the results of what you're doing when you say the animal's name. And that's something to be conscious of. You know, when you say it, are you looking for something particular? Are you looking for recognition? Are you looking for them to come up to you to a station? You know, and it could be very, very different. And just thinking about what the animal could be thinking about, they could be thinking about, oh, that word that they're saying means I'm supposed to come up here. They don't know that's their name necessarily.
Yeah.
They chose to. So.
But
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's different taxa to taxa. I mean, you know, I mean, a gator's not going to really know his name. Just hear some words together and it's like, oh, I think I'm supposed to do this. Versus a chimp who's going to know a lot more commands, a lot more differences. You know, their names, elephants probably look the same. So you talk about higher cognitive ability versus lower. Very different.
Chimps are calling you by name,
Oh, they are.
essentially.